This is the team review for Aurum Summons, comprised of the sinners Hypatia, Hilda, and Irrheia. In my subjective opinion, none of these units are particularly valuable solo, thus I decided to group them together in one video as a team to talk about their synergy. Lysandra will be excluded from this video as she is not a critical part of the team, though to be clear, she's not actually bad, I just didn't want this video to be 1 hour long. As always, the TLDR first. This is a team that works best in long battles, where Hilda has time to farm stacks and Irrheia has time to cast her resonance, so it's fun in Tides of Ashes or Mania training, maybe some data crevice maps. I do not recommend it for short content like BFL. If you want big scores on Tides of Ashes 12, the minimum requirement I've seen proof of contains S4 Shin, and either S4 Hilda, S1 Hypatia, S0 Irrheia with S3 Eve, or S3 Hilda, S3 Hypatia, S1 Irrheia with S1 Eve. I personally believe S4 Hilda, S1 Hypatia, and S1 Irrheia, with everyone else S0, well, still S4 Shin, should be able to get 300 million, maybe S1 Eve, but that's pure theory crafting, and I haven't had the chance to actually test it. So take that last one with a huge pinch of salt. Hilda's shackles are the most important, as well as Hilda and Hypatia's ECB3. The simple explanation on how to play it is keep spamming Hilda's ult whenever you have it to build stacks, and then just use Irrheia's ult whenever you have it, and when Irrheia's book has ult, use it on Hilda's radio first, and the rest of them on Hypatia's flower whenever you have it. And at the last core break, feed all empowers to Hypatia, spam her ults, and win. You know how to play Aurum Summons now? You can exit the video. The rest of this video will be a more detailed explanation of each member. Let's begin by talking about Aurum Summons as a whole. All three of these sinners will automatically create a summon at the start of the fight. Hypatia's flower, Hilda's radio, and Irrheia's book. The flower, radio, and book are all considered summons, so crime brands like Creation will work on them, but additionally they also have the special Aurum tag. Aurum type summons are able to resonate with each other, and basically they will share certain parts of their kit with one another, labeled resonant. You'll see it in their kit as like resonant something something something. Also, whenever an Aurum summon in resonance ults, the others that are also in resonance will also use their own ult once at 20% of the original damage and trigger all other effects. So if everyone is in resonance and Hilda ults, Hypatia and Irrheia will also ult once for free. Hilda and Hypatia are not able to enter resonance on their own, they must rely on Irrheia. As of Rust and Margaret's patch, there is no other way to enter resonance. So let's talk about her first. Irrheia is a catalyst sinner who specializes in supporting Aurum Summons. At the start of the battle, she summons her book. If you P3 her and unlock her Mania Intensify, it becomes Stronger Book, but I'm still gonna call it Book. And this one will automatically be in resonance when summoned, and it will get its own ult. The book's ult can target another Aurum summon and put it into resonance, which lasts for the rest of the fight. However, there is a huge 90-second initial cooldown on the book, and then 40 seconds after using it. This means you can only place the first allied Aurum summon, Hilda's, into resonance at 1.5 minutes after the fight starts, and the next one, Hypatia's, at 2 minutes and 10 seconds, which I hope starts to paint an idea of why this team is designed for long fights. Side note, if there are any highest HP gimmicks in a fight, which TOA 12 does have, the book will usually be the one who ends up eating it, because it gains a 50% HP bonus from Irrheia's Mania Intensify. So it's actually really tanky, and you can make it the main tank in the team. Anyway, let's get on with Irrheia herself. Her ult targets a single tile, hitting all enemies in it for some magic damage. This is considered to be normal attack damage. It also causes enemies to take 10% extra normal attack damage for 15 seconds, and if the book is able to ult, so if it's not stunned or, dead, the book will be the one who casts this ult. The normal attack damage amp takes place first, so Irrheia's own damage will be buffed by that, which is nice. Though the damage from this is pretty unremarkable. Her P1 will reduce enemy magic resistance by 80 points for 15 seconds. Additionally, it will try to purify buffs that enemies have. We first saw this in Sito's peak test path. You can check if an enemy has a purifiable buff by looking in enemy info for something like this. If a buff is successfully purified, the enemy will additionally lose 40 more magic resistance for the same 15 seconds. In context, Hypatia's flower has around 820 attack, so without purifying, it's kind of like Irrheia buffing 9.7 attack for Hypatia's flower. It's not super remarkable. Irreia's P2 is that if the book ults an Aurum Summon that is already in resonance, the chosen Aurum Summon will gain Awakened Resonance for 10 seconds, and it increases the effects of its resonance skills by 10%. This is essentially a small buff that doesn't matter too much overall, it's just nice to have, just don't worry about it. Her ECB causes Aurum Summons in resonance to take less damage, which is nice, and also reduces the cooldown on the book's ult. At ECB 3, it makes the initial cooldown 80 seconds and the future ones 35 seconds between each. Again, it's just not really much in the grand scheme of things. You may be noticing a pattern of, yeah, this doesn't really matter across most of Irreia's kit. It's probably because resonance itself is already really strong. You'll see why when I explain Hilda and Hypatia later, so they couldn't give her anything else too crazy. Her S1 is alright. It increases the normal attack damage taken debuff on her ult to 30% on enemies who are in the core broken state, and it lines up well with a burst phase, so it can be worth considering. Also, this buff does actually work for non-Aurum Sinners, so if you want to use Irrheia generically, you could get S1 for this, though it's not like super efficient or slot friendly, but it exists. S3 increases her P2's Awakened Resonance buff to 20% and the duration to 20 seconds, but again, not anything super remarkable, and I wouldn't call it very impactful compared to most S3s in the game. Essentially with Irrheia, you just want to use ult whenever she has it, and then when the book has ult, immediately use it on Hilda's radio. After that, all book ults go to Hypatia, and yeah, that's it. Her whole thing is just to stand there and for resonance to exist, very simple to play, not particularly shackle reliant, besides S1 being nice to have. The only thing is, try not to spam everyone's ults too fast, because sometimes if you use all their ults too quickly together, they end up not casting all the bonus ults, wasting stacks for Hilda. Speaking of, next, let's discuss Hilda. Listen, if someone tells you that for Aurum to perform well, you should invest high shackles on Hypatia because she's the main DPS or whatever, run. That is a 100% success rate noob check, because the real crux of Aurum Summon is absolutely Hilda. I want to say clearly upfront, Irrheia isn't bad, Irrheia helps Hilda farm her stacks faster, and Hypatia is technically the main DPS, but Irrheia just needs to apply resonance, and that's it. And Hypatia really just needs to ult, and that's about it. Hilda is the one who is actually providing the huge stacks of damage bonuses. Understand? Understand? Okay? Good, let's talk about Hilda. Hilda is an arcane sinner with long silver hair, red irises, depression, has an average figure, summoner, radio wave theme, thigh-high slit skirt wearing, black stockings having 30 cost, 3x3, 1 core break ult, causes a follow-up attack from her summons, crux of her dedicated team comp sinner. At the start of the battle, Hilda will summon her radio, which collects stacks of intelligence up to 600 stacks. Yes, 600, not 60. This is the whole gimmick. You want to maximize intelligence stacks because each stack buffs other Aurum Summons for 0.5% damage dealt and 0.5% magic damage dealt from her P2. This means at full stacks, Hilda can buff 300% damage dealt times 300% magic damage dealt for other Aurum Summons. Please consider that a 20% buff in math is multiplying the original number by 1.2. That makes 300% times 300% to be 4 times 4 for 16 times damage buff from Hilda at full stacks. Dude, forget like getting 10 more ults out of Hypatia from something. 16! Moreover, her P1 provides another 20% multiplicative damage to elites and bosses, and damage dealt by ults through the resonance for just an insane 23 times damage. She single-handedly carries this team on her back. Look at it, what is this? I swear I'm not glazing her just because Arcane Summoner with Depression and long silver hair and 3x3 ult with Pull Break. I did a 300 billion run on the permanent TOA with her without Irrheia. So clearly you want to prioritize getting stacks on Hilda, so let's see how the rest of her kit works around that. The radio collects stacks whenever it triggers Intelligence Collection, and it will do this once every 12 seconds by default. For every allied sinner and every Aurum summon on the team, it will collect 1 stack. So with a full 6 sinner team containing Hilda, Hypatia, Irrheia, each collection will gain 9 stacks. Unlike Irreia's book, it doesn't have its own ult, but it will deal some damage in a 3x3 around it every time it does collection based on how many stacks that it collected, which is nice. Next, Hilda's ult. Like with other Aurum summons, when Hilda ults, if the radio is not stunned or dead, the radio will be the one who casts the ult, not Hilda. This is a good thing within the Aurum summon team. It deals damage in a 3x3 AoE where you target, and 1 core damage as well. If the radio is the one casting the ult, it will also perform Intelligent Collection once. So you want to spam as many ults from Hilda as possible to make the radio keep collecting stacks, making energy bonuses super valuable for her. Her P1 grants buffs based on the number of stacks the radio currently has. At 30, it's 20% bonus damage dealt to elites and bosses, same type as Melodia's Bell Tower. 60 stacks grants CC resistance immunity to the radio, and 90 grants 20% damage dealt by the ultimate. Additionally, if the radio is in resonance as mentioned before, these buffs will also apply to other Aurum summons in resonance. It's basically another buff for Hilda and Hypatia, which is great. Hilda's P2 is the magic damage dealt buff based on her attacks mentioned earlier, and also that it shares both the damage dealt and magic damage dealt buffs to other Aurum sinners. They do not need to be in resonance for this buff to work, that's why you don't necessarily have to play Irrheia with Hilda. However, it is of course a good synergy. Hilda's ECB is that for each stack the radio has, Hilda's energy regen increases by 1% up to 90% at ECB 3. It is really important that you get ECB 3 on Hilda because as we saw in her ult, you want to keep spamming them for maximum stacks, so you want all the energy you can get. And ECB 3 is triple the energy regen of ECB 1. Also, once placed in resonance, this buff works on all other owners of Aurum summons, so she will buff Irrheia and Hypatia's energy regen by 90%, and you can think of this as almost halving their ult costs. It's crazy, right? Overall, Hilda forms the utility core of Aurum summon. She is the main core breaker, energy battery, biggest amper, and even the 70 to 80% of the damage that Hypatia does due to all the ult spams. If you run LL for maximum ult spamming, Hilda can even do more damage than Hypatia. Her S1 starts her off with 30 stacks, which is nice, but the real key shackle is S3, which gives her 2 more stacks for every ult, and by now I hope you're getting how good that is. Her S4 is also nice, reducing her ult cost from 30 to 25, which means more ults, which means more stacks. So for people investing into Aurum, while she is complete at S0, to really get that mind-blowing damage, I would recommend S3 or even S4 on Hilda and keeping all the others at lower shackles. I don't think that it's currently possible to max out Hilda's stacks at S0 or S1, even with LL, but I've done it very easily with LL on S4. Like, you don't even have to max out her stacks for big damage, but it's nice to get what you can. Finally, we have the Nepo baby of Aurum Summon, Hypatia. Hypatia is a reticle sinner who specializes in dealing damage against bosses, particularly those with large hitboxes. I'm gonna be so real with you, she basically stands there looking pretty until the final core break, then spams ult and wins after Hilda did all the work. But we're still going to break down her kit, so here. Like the others, Hypatia summons an Aurum summon at the start of the battle, the flower. It just basic attacks the boss and it doesn't have its own ult, so moving on. Hypatia's ult hits in 3 tiles, with each hit dealing 1400 attack damage, split between all enemies struck inside that tile. This means if all 3 land in a box's hitbox and doesn't hit anything else, it will deal 4200% attack to the boss, which is nice, but if there is one mob standing inside one of the tiles, it will be 140 for one tile, 140 second tile, then only 700 on that third tile with the mob, so that's 3500% attack. This means ideally you want to hit only the boss with Hypatia's ult and to hit the entire ult inside its hitbox. Like the other Aurum Summons, if the flower is not stunned or dead or otherwise incapacitated, the flower will be the one who casts the ult instead of Hypatia. Her P1 means that when she uses her ult, all allied summons will gain a 12% normal attack damage dealt buff. If the ult is cast by the Aurum Summon, it goes up to a total of 20%. This will work on the ult itself that activated the effect, so basically all of Hypatia's ults will have this buff. Her P2 is that after the flower casts an ult, its attack will increase by 5% for up to 5 stacks, 25% attack bonus. Like P1, this buff counts on the ult that activates it, so Hypatia's very first ult will have the 5% attack bonus already. If the flower is in resonance, this buff will also apply to all other Aurum Summons in resonance, which is great. Hypatia's ECB really focuses her on boss killing. At ECB 3, her damage as well as the flowers increases by 30% against bosses, and for every tile the boss takes up, another 1.2, up to 25 stacks. This totals at a 60% damage increase against a boss that is 5x5 tiles in size, such as the War Apostle or most Tides of Ashes bosses. It's worth investing into ECB 3 for her as it goes from a 20% to 60% amp, and it is also a resonance effect, so this buff will work on Hilda and Irrheia, and we know Hilda does a lot of damage as well. For her shackles, S1 is nice because it increases her P2 stack limit to 8 for a 40% attack bonus that can be shared to Hilda and Irrheia. Her S3 sounds good, but it only works on Hypatia and the flower's basic attacks, not the ults. But the ults are the main source of damage, so it's not really worth getting. Go for Hilda's S3 instead. I really want to emphasize, don't go for S3 Hypatia and S1 Hilda, then later cry in my comments. S3 on Hilda is way more important. It's totally fine to go S0 or S1 on all of the Aurum Sinners, but if you decide to go for shackles, don't choose Hypatia. It's a trap. Choose Hilda, okay? Okay. Anyway, Aurum Summon main niche, as said before, is fighting in battles lasting over basically 2.5 minutes. And the performance in Dark Zone it's pretty weak. You can clear, but at that point, it's the high shackles on supports that are the ones carrying, and any DPS would be able to clear in that situation. If you are clearing Dark Zone stress-free with this team, you probably don't need my advice for pull recommendations. Moving on to team building, one of the slots is best taken by an S4 Shin. You need the initial 8 stacks on her normal attack buff to snapshot it onto the Aurum Summons at the start of the fight. It wouldn't work if you only have S3. So try to borrow one for TOA. However, like other summons, Shin's S3 will double dip on Aurum Summons for 72% damage dealt buff, so it's not like S3 is completely bad. Other than that, go for Eve as one of the best general summon supports and buffers, and the last slot can be filled with Summer for normal attack damage taken buff, Stargazer for damage taken from summons and her EX node as well, or LL to really spam those Hilda ults. I will say with Stargazer, sometimes it feels like there's just too many things on screen, so it could be a little overwhelming for people who are not very experienced with summon, but you do get used to it after a while. In summary, Aurum Summon is a team that is specialized in stacking up buffs and resonating together to deal damage through huge multipliers at the end of the battle. It is definitely the cheapest and most brain-dead way to get hundreds of millions in the Tides of Ashes, but that may not be important to you personally, and in that case, you can safely skip this team. Hope this was helpful for you to decide if you want to pull for them. It'll be a while until the next Sinner review since I've covered the 2 next ones here, so I will see you in the next one for Margaret and Rust. For now, bye bye! Actually, there is one last thing I wanted to say. I hope I am not about to get into trouble for this, but I think you guys deserve to know. It is a criticism of how the game handled the creation of the Aurum team. If you check your game in English now, during Hypatia's rerun, you'll notice Hypatia does not have any references to resonance in her kit. This is because on the Chinese server, Hilda was released immediately after Hypatia's rerun finished, and during that patch, Hypatia's kit was changed to add resonance without warning after her rerun finished. In my opinion, I already think that changing a Sinner's base kit after release isn't good, but it feels scummy to do it the literal day after her rerun finishes. I understand that they wanted to make a new cohesive team, and the Resonance gimmick itself is cool and I like it. However, it should have been introduced ahead of time and players should have been given a heads up at least during Hypatia's rerun itself. I felt that it was important to talk about this because there was a really good point I saw on Bilibili, which is if the company can just decide to change a Sinner's base kit with no warning like this, who would dare to make Sinner reviews or guides for the community from now on? Because they might say something and then a few patches later, the Sinner might just change. And if they recommend that you pulled or skipped, players might be mad at them. Who would dare to help others with pull recs or well money to pull a certain Sinner if the base kit just changes with no warning? Imagine when Synex reruns and everyone says, oh, you can safely skip her, don't worry, and the next patch, suddenly her kit changes and she becomes part of one of the best teams for TOA. Like, that's just not good for player trust. So if you've watched this far and agree, I would like to make a request of you. During the next survey in-game, please write feedback to the company that you are aware this issue happened, that Hypatia was changed after her rerun finished with no warning, and you do not agree with it as it damages player trust that you will get what you chose to pay for. It should at least come with an early notification right before or maybe during that Sinner's banner, not as a retroactive surprise. My hope is by doing this, at least the company will know that some players are aware of this even on the global server and help them to understand that they should not do something like this again. Okay, the video is over for real now. Pray that I don't get in trouble for this whole part. Bye bye!